teaching you the art of industrial real estate. This is On Air with Team Jensen.
All right. Welcome, listeners. We have with us folks from cfm Distributors here down in the West Bottoms today on episode 22 of On Air, the art of industrial real estate. Thanks for coming on with us. We have Lauren and Ryan. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It's excited to be in here and see your guys' very cool building here down in the West Bottoms. And we're in your world-class training center, which you can probably see some of the units behind the two of you. And very excited to dive into things and hear more about CFM and your roles within the company. So I'll let the two of you introduce yourselves, and we can kind of go from there. But Lauren, if you want to get us started.
Yeah, I'm Lauren Roberts. I'm president, CEO, and chairwoman of the board here at CFM. I've worked here about 20 years now and started as an accounting assistant and then moved over to marketing soon after that and worked my way up through the ranks over the years through that and then through leadership since 2012. So really great place to work, and we're a 100% employee-owned company, which makes it even more fun to work here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, Ryan Martin. I'm the CFO here at cfm Distributors. I've been here coming up on 4 years, I guess. And my background is fairly eclectic. It always makes podcasts fun to kind of go through them. But yeah, it's, art school, played music in bands, did a little bit of traveling around with that. And then somehow in a roundabout way, got my CPA and about a decade in public practice there, and then I've been, like I said, a couple different places, but here for almost 4 years, and it's been a pleasure. Yeah, it's always nice when you join a company that you kind of get to ride on the coattails of the reputation a little bit. So
Absolutely.
I walk into a room and I'm, the guy from cfm Distributors,
right.
so
Yeah.
It's nice.
oh, very cool.
Well, and Lauren, you're a fourth generation.
Third generation leader of our company,
Okay.
fourth leader.
Cool.
There was one outside of our family who was one of the founders.
Got it.
Very cool.
Got it.
And kind of touching on CFM, what's the history there? I know you've been here for decades now in the West Bottoms, but is this where you got started, or was there?
So CFM was founded in 1969 and started in Merriam, Kansas.
Okay.
And when they were asked to become a stocking wholesale distributor rather than a manufacturer's rep, they moved down here to the West Bottoms in 1974 to this building we're in today.
Okay.
And it started as our first and only location. And then in the late 90s, the leadership team at the time started adding branch locations throughout Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Iowa.
Cool.
Is that in '74? Founders had the opportunity to buy this building.
That's right.
Okay. How was it at the West Bottoms at that time? Was it, I'm sure, kind of recovering still from some things?
It was definitely recovering still from the 1951 flood.
Right.
And it was a much different landscape down here.
I bet.
Still a lot of vacant buildings at the time, but some other businesses were here. There was a little dive bar down the street that's no longer in existence. And the landscape looked a little bit different, but for the most part, a lot of the buildings you see down here today were here more thriving in some businesses at that time than others. And, I don't know what year Kemper Arena was added, but that was a big fixture in the West Bottoms for years.
Oh, yeah.
With huge events and sports and things like that.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that kept the West Bottoms going strong. But
Was there a specific time that you guys put your CFM label on the top of the building? Do you recall when that might have
I
happened?
wasn't involved in the company at that time, and I'm not sure when they added it, but it looks like it's been there a very long time.
Yeah, because your guys' branding. I mean, I've known the company for a while, just being a Kansas City lifer, and this building, driven by it thousands of times, and
Yeah.
it's neat. It's a neat area.
Well, do you remember growing up, coming out to the building, and I'm sure checking out the warehouse and all
yeah.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, I came down here a lot when I was growing up. My grandfather was one of the co-founders, and then when I was a kid, and until about 6 years ago, my dad worked here full time.
Oh, cool.
He was my predecessor as president and CEO. And so when my dad was a salesperson, I was a kid, and I would come to work with him on snow days or
Yeah.
summer days.
Right.
And again, it was much different down here. Sometimes we'd come down here even during the Halloween season to the haunted houses
Yep,
in the
yep.
neighborhood. And it was not a place you really wanted to be after dark.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
There's been a lot of efforts with the Historic West Bottoms Association bringing in security and additional cleanup and light removal and things like that to beautify the neighborhood over the years. And
Yeah.
it was definitely different though when I was a kid, and I enjoyed also kind of running around the building and causing trouble and
Yeah.
trying to help in different
Uh-huh.
departments
absolutely.
whenever
Yeah.
they needed it too.
I was curious if you had some overlap with your dad before he retired. That's neat. That's fun getting to work together. We work with our dads, so we know how that dynamic works. But
I
cool.
even got a chance to work with my grandfather, who was working here part-time for
Awesome.
the first few years.
That's
That was-
special. Yeah,
that
that's
was
very
really
cool.
special.
Yeah, very neat.
Well, and Ryan, you've said been about here 4 years now. That's kind of right when the pandemic was
Oh, yeah.
coming down, and
Yeah.
kind of curious if you two want to touch on that, and kind of, I'm sure even just the difference between fresh eyes versus growing up around the company, just what the company looked like then, and the challenges you faced, and the opportunities that you had come about, and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, coming into the company in late 2020, it was, really the height of the pandemic. I remember, I think right after I'd accepted the job, it was like, oh, a bunch of people have COVID, so, you may or may not be starting that day or not.
Right.
But yeah, it was just such an interesting time to come in and really kind of see the company handle a crisis. And there's no better way. Like you figure out who people are during a crisis, you figure out who companies are during crises.
Yeah.
And especially us being an employee-owned company, just seeing everybody come together was amazing. And come together in a way that supported each other, that,
Right.
During the relatively short period during mid-2020 before I got here, I mean, there was a moment where it's like, we don't know what the world's going to look like in 10 minutes,
Right.
And we don't know if, we're going to be able to operate as normal, be able to really just continue as a status quo business. And Lauren, you can go into it a little bit if you want, but yeah, I mean, the employee owners and that mindset really came together to really just rally, and rally in a way that in some cases was briefly detrimental to their paychecks, and we were lucky to quickly make that up.
Yeah, as Ryan touched on there, obviously it all started in March 2020, and Ryan was lucky to not be on our team at that point because it was a little, whatever team you were on across the world, it was a lot.
Oh, I had my moments where I was, trust me.
Yeah. And we,
Okay.
in March of 2020, we saw what we had done in the first quarter, which was a fairly lackluster first quarter. And then the pandemic hit, and like everybody in the world, we didn't know what was going to happen, as Ryan said, even in the next 10 minutes. And so with what had happened in the first quarter, plus the uncertainty ahead, we decided that we needed to tap into something that CFM did during hard economic times in the early 80s, when interest rates were really high during the oil crisis, and ask everybody in the company if you want to take a 10% pay cut on base pay across the board or do a 10% layoff. And in the early 80s, when they did it, everybody agreed, even though they were independently owned, not 100% employee owned.
Yeah.
And by the end of that year, they recovered and they were able to reinstate pay rates to what they were before and pay back the lost wages and even give bonuses.
That's
So,
very cool.
Yeah, it was nice how they all rallied back then. So I tapped into that in 2020 and went around and talked to everybody in our headquarters here, which has most of our employee owners, and talked about the options on the table and what we were facing. And everybody said they wanted to do a 10% base pay cut like happened in the early 80s. And in 6 weeks, we got the PPP loan and the EDL loan, and we were able to reinstate pay rates and pay back pay to where it was and
That's
everything.
awesome.
And then we also gave a ton of bonuses to our frontline people throughout the year for
Yeah.
being here when a lot of our team was able to work remotely, and they were keeping the operation running at all of our locations.
Still the
Yeah.
boots on the ground. And,
Well, yeah, that's a special company culture to be able to do that, and I think there's a pride that comes with that. Certainly, leaning into that and looking at it as a company. So
Yeah.
I read that story on your guys' website, and I was like, it's pretty cool. The culture culture was instilled in the company from the inception. I
Right.
mean, yeah,
Long ago. That's
yeah.
a big part of why we're able and are still able to be a successful employee-owned company.
Yeah.
Because it's not for everybody in their culture. Another fun thing that happened during the pandemic, and Ryan was a part of this for sure, was for years we had looked at changing operating systems, and we finally got to the point where everybody was on board with changing that. And so when the pandemic hit, we kind of put that on pause. We were going to implement in, I think, originally December of 2020, but because of the pandemic, we were unsure of the expense and everything.
Right.
Well, after things started showing that they were going to go gangbusters, we went ahead and we decided to proceed with the project with a little later go live date of March 26th of 2021. And so we had everybody from different departments working on this project, refining who we were going to go with, and we picked all that together. And then in March of 2021, a year after the pandemic started, we went live with a new operating system, a new warehouse management system, a new e-commerce site, a new online customer payment solution, and a new tax software.
Yeah.
And all 5 integrated in one day. And,
Welcome to your first year. Huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was. I've been here 3-4 months, and it was a lot. It was fun though. It was. Implementations are kind of like I was saying about COVID. Implementations are a great way to see who everybody is, and we. There were definitely moments, but coming through it and being able to get to a point where everybody finally says, like, look at what we've done. It's just been amazing.
Yeah. And I'm sure with the demand that you saw in those years following, I'm sure you were very happy that you had the new systems in place.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it probably lessened the load a little bit with the overwhelming demand you saw, I'd have to imagine.
Well, and the biggest thing in terms of that implementation was bringing in this really tight warehouse management system.
Yeah.
Being able to know where everything is in the building, know what serial numbers are where, especially now that we've got, 5 satellite stores and a distribution center out east. Being able to really just know what you have, where it is, what shape it's in. It's been amazing. But I mean, for me coming in, Lauren kind of mentioned, growing up with the business and the building. For me, it's been a really fun journey to kind of have that process where I kind of came in fresh, 2020. I mean, full disclosure, I walked in and was like, you distribute HVAC in a 115-year-old building that has 7 stories and a basement? And it was amazing. I mean, I've kind of had this journey mentally where I've just fallen in love with the building and all the nooks and crannies of it. And because there was a time when I first started where I would have been like, does this even make sense? And it's like, once you see the history and you see the people and you see, honestly, our customers, they, a buddy of mine grew up in the industry, and he talks about coming down here as a kid, much like you, and, walking through the shop and getting a hot dog and all this stuff. And it's just so cool to kind of hear that history from a customer perspective.
Yeah.
And so, it's been a lot of fun to kind of have that journey mentally of like, are we insane? I can see why this is such a special place.
Well, that leads right into my crack it open. Ryan touched on it certainly a little bit, but that was one of my pressing questions. Was I can only imagine over your 20 years that you've been here, the amount of times people have presented CFM all these great, more efficient options than this building. Mm-hmm. And obviously this building is such a part of CFM and your history and your identity, essentially. I guess, and maybe you touched on it enough, but what are some of the main reasons that you guys have decided to, stay put and really kind of lean into what you've got here and this cool historic piece of property?
Great question. One of the big reasons is we're the only downtown wholesaler in our business, in
Okay.
our industry here.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
very centrally located for all of our contractor customers
Right.
to get to. So that's a big part of it. And then CFM and this building have played a huge part in the history of the West Bottoms. And with all the attention the West Bottoms is getting with the Samara Road 15-year redevelopment project,
Right.
it's even coming more and more up in regular
Hey.
conversation and news all the time. And
Yeah.
this building has kind of been the shining star of the West Bottoms for years too. It's been well maintained on the outside and cleaned regularly, and
Right.
having a regular thriving business in it helps that versus some of
Absolutely.
the neighbor buildings who have had some vacancies over the years. But those are two of the things. And then, we did a SWOT analysis as a leadership team a couple of years ago, and the building was in every quadrant. So, but it is attractive for a lot of people to think about working here in a cool historic building.
Definitely.
And then some people think, well, I'd really like to work in a more modern building. So I'd say we have more people who have a favorable opinion of it
Right.
than an unfavorable opinion of it.
And you guys are utilizing every floor,
Every
right?
floor, yep. And we have 2 freight elevators, and we are very strategic about where we position our inventory. So the
Okay.
faster moving items that sell more often are on the first floor,
Right.
just like every other wholesaler who's, for the most part, they're all on one level. And then second floor that we're on here has more of our training center that we're in here and our training classroom, and not so much storage of inventory. And then 3 and above has inventory at least on half of the floor, especially until we move to the distribution center model with the off-site distribution center. So for many, many years, we used all 7 floors and got by with 2 freight elevators because of the strategic positioning of
Yeah.
inventory.
Yeah, I'm sure it hasn't come without its pain points at times.
Right.
But
When a 120-year-old elevator goes down, we have great elevator repair people right down the street, and
Yeah.
they prioritize us
I
well.
was gonna
but
say, yeah.
Well,
when
even those
one goes down,
elevators,
it's tough.
even those elevators are just very cool. I mean,
Are they original freight elevators?
Yeah, and they're well maintained for
Yeah,
sure.
that's
Because
awesome.
people look at them and go, oh my.
Sure.
Yeah,
right.
I always point to the inspection certificates.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah,
Right.
people get in, they're just like, and I'm like, nope.
Yeah, we're
it's-
good,
Yeah,
we're good."
we're good. So I want to touch a little bit on, you kind of mentioned the training center that we're in right now,
Yeah.
and just what makes the training center special, and what makes it special to us as a value-added distributor. I mean, you can go into way more detail, but it's not a common thing for a distributor to offer this type of, this level of facility. So.
Yeah, well said. And our industry, like other trades, are facing massive shortages of technicians who are
Right.
trained up and ready to go. And, there aren't a lot of people until more recently who even think about going to trade school. So then it leaves it up to our contractor customers to have their own labs, and they can be hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
to build out, like we were talking before.
Right.
And so we figured that's just another value add, like Ryan touched on, that we could do here, so they don't have the expense as the contractors to build out their own lab. And then we have very experienced, well-renowned trainers on our staff
Cool.
who train them. And unlike some of our competitors, our tech service and training team doesn't compete with our customers. So that's another
Right.
added benefit where they trust our team to truly train them
yeah.
in a hands-on way to be successful in the field.
Well, it's a good place to be in a day and age where, college can be cost prohibitive. The trades are getting, more and more attention with the up and coming generation. Is there a recruiting effort have you guys been in high schools and have done some things like that to try and attract, the younger generation coming up?
Yeah, multiple team members, including myself. Ryan, I know, has done some. Other people on our team have done some one-off career days or
Right.
speeches or whatever at high schools and even elementary level
Yeah.
to career days in underserved community areas. And we try to do that as much as we can. We could probably do better. But,
Right.
And then we have involvement with some of the local trade schools too.
Yeah,
Very
there's
cool.
so much opportunity. I mean, one thing about the trades nowadays is it's just not as popular to get into, and so part of
Right.
it is just in general, beefing up trades and young people kind of going into trade schools, but then also, people of color and people that might come from marginalized communities, kind of trying to encourage, just more diversity in the industry. And I think it's really it's gonna be fun to see the future.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and kind of switching gears back to, you've said employee owned a number of times. When did the company decide to go that route? And, how do you feel like it separates you from your competition? Because I'm sure, having everyone with skin in the game and the pride behind the name, I think is very cool and unique. So.
Our company became partially employee-owned in 2002 when one of the founders wanted to have an exit strategy. And I mentioned earlier how the team rallied in the early 80s and had each other's back to not have anybody laid off but take a base pay cut when times got tough. And that kind of mentality, along with just having everybody involved in key decision-making over the years, even though two gentlemen, my grandfather and the other founder, Bruce Huffman, owned it, they involved everybody in the decision making as much as they could. So that groundwork was laid, and then it made sense as a next step to kind of continue sharing the wealth and the decision making. So it became partially employee owned in 2002. My dad was the majority owner, and then the ESOP owned about 30%. And then over time, he sold more of his shares to the ESOP when more people joined the company so they could become owners. And then in 2012, we became 100% employee owned at the end of that year.
Awesome.
And it was another natural progression. We had spent a lot of years teaching about the benefits of the employee ownership and the impact of it. And it's really taken off in interest since then. And it's been a really great thing because some companies say they're employee owned, but the leader actually owns the majority. Well,
Right.
In our case, that's not the case. I own about 2% in my position as the leader of the company, and there are a bunch of people at all different levels of the company who own more than I do.
Yeah.
And that alone empowers people to act as
Absolutely.
an owner. And
Yeah.
then we have certain rules in place, or call it policies, that allow people to be more empowered. One of which is we have what we call the $1,000 rule, where any employee from day one can make a decision. Let's say, a product gets shipped wrong or misshipped or whatever that case may be, doesn't get shipped. And a customer's out on a job site, it's hot, summertime, they've got a lot of people waiting around and it doesn't arrive. Well, they call our person, instantly they can get the unit on a flatbed truck, get it out to them, take care of it, cover the charge of all of it, and not have to ask for any supervisor approval or anything like that.
That's awesome.
And turn a bad day into a good day in a second.
Yeah.
Where our competition varies is a lot of them are private equity owned or large corporations.
Right.
They don't have a lot of frontline empowerment, and it might take 3 weeks to get something resolved, and by that time the customer's mad and down the road.
At their wits'
The
end,
problem's
yeah.
gotten worse.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So that's one of many ways that rule can be used, but I like to point to that as one of the biggest ways we empower our employee owners.
Yeah, giving them the authority to make decisions and do
Yeah.
what's right by the customer. And
Right.
yeah, I would imagine you guys have a handful of significantly tenured employees.
That's right.
We do, yeah.
We've all heard, I'm a millennial, so I can say this, millennials were supposed to be job hoppers who moved every 2 to
Right.
3 years. Well, I don't know the count exactly off the top of my head right now, but we have a significant amount of millennials who've worked here 10 years or more.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so that's a great thing. Another great thing in the competitive landscape is we only have one competitor in our territory who's 100% employee owned.
Yeah.
So
Very
it is
cool.
a pretty unique thing.
That
in our
really sets you
industry.
apart. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Well, and
That's awesome.
and we don't have a ton more time because I know you guys have a meeting to get
We
to.
can go a few minutes.
But just speaking of the pandemic and how things have changed, and I know 2024 for a lot of folks has been just a slower year and a challenging year in different ways. But can you touch on what your vision is for the short term and long term, and where you see CFM Distributors going? I have a feeling you'll be in the West Bottoms, for a long time, and continue to be a flag here down in the area. But I'm just curious if you could touch on some goals and plans of what you guys have in store.
Yeah, so our industry right now is facing a huge product transition with refrigerants,
Okay.
which is a massive undertaking and something most of us haven't been through to this degree or magnitude in our whole careers. So
All environmentally driven, right?
yep,
Yeah.
all EPA
Yep.
driven.
Yep.
And so everyone's in the same boat in our industry. It's just a matter of when everybody's transitioning their different products and teaching a lot. We're doing a ton of training of our contractors to get prepared for it.
Yeah.
There's going to be refrigerants that are mildly flammable, so the brazing and installation process has to change.
When you're sweating
a
something
ton.
in, that gets a little dicey, doesn't it?
Yeah, so changing all kinds of methods for that. That's a big focus of ours this year. Another big focus is technology for us, and I'm sure Ryan can add some more color to this. We're launching a CRM for the first time company-wide this year.
Cool.
We're a little behind the times on that, but
That's all
we're
right.
excited
Yeah.
about that. And then we also have launched some cool analytical tools to make our reporting easier here. And then, let's see, we've got some AI in the future that
Yeah.
we're going to integrate in some different ways. We've already done some of that and some automation in our accounting processes and inventory management. And just overall, we keep looking for ways to serve our customers better, more efficiently, all that sort of stuff. And then long term, like you alluded to, we're looking forward to staying in the West Bottoms and seeing what the new development pans out to be. And
Yeah.
it's going to be an exciting
Do you
lot
see,
of years.
Do you see your guys, do you see trying to stretch into other regional Midwest markets that you're not in today?
You know, we're always open to any opportunities that may come our way.
Right.
At the moment, we don't have any right on the doorstep. But
Gotcha.
you never
Gotcha.
know when one might come along.
Well, that's the great thing about being a part of a well-run company, which I'm humbled to be a small part of, but debt-free ESOP. So, like Lauren said, there's nothing on the horizon, but being able to be nimble, and if the world goes nuts like it did in 2020, being able to put $10 million into inventory and to get a 50,000 square foot extra location to store it, and in the future, should M&A stuff come up, being able to be nimble and kind of go into those opportunities on our terms is amazing. And that's one thing that every time we have all company meetings, I really just stress that it's so much fun to be a part of a company that actually plays the long game and cares about financial health and kind of where we go from here. Because Kurt, like you said, I mean, this year interest rates are up, a lot of repair versus replacement in terms of equipment. And so it's how do we get through, times like this and then set ourselves up for the future? How do we come out of it going, okay, we've got the systems in place, we've done the hard work to really set ourselves up, so then when the playing field kind of opens up, we're ready and waiting and excited to go get it. So, yeah.
Well, it seems like CFM's in good hands to weather any other storms on the horizon that they've already waded through over the last few decades.
We have some amazing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Some truly amazing people.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah. Well, and is there anything else before we wrap it up? Is there anything else that you all want to touch on, or anything we're leaving behind, or any direction for the listeners to if they have questions on to reach out to you all? The best way to contact CFM
If they want to be an future employee.
Yeah, or
owner.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'd love any inquiries about future employment opportunities. And then if you need to find a heating and cooling contractor that's really trusted, go to MidwestAirPros.com.
Okay.
And that's our list of very good quality dealers in our territory.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, we don't sell to just any dealer. We have quality dealers, and that's one thing we're very proud of. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's Midwest Quality Care, or
It's MidwestAirPros.com.
Airpros. Okay.
Yeah.
MidwestAirPros.com. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate the two of you coming on with us today. We've enjoyed being in this awesome historic building, and I think it's been a cool setup for the podcast. So
Yeah.
appreciate you
Thanks for having us.
having us in, and until next time. But as all the Kansas City listeners know, I don't think CFM's logo is going anywhere, and when you're coming down to the West Bottoms for, what is it, is it called
First Friday?
First Fridays?
First Fridays or Halloween
Yeah.
or the future West Bottoms development.
Yep.
Maybe we'll have to do another episode when it's all built out
Yeah.
and finished. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
But now you know what's going on behind the scenes here, and thanks again for coming on. And listeners, give us a follow on air of Art and Industrial Real Estate, Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. So thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
yeah, thank you both so much.
Yeah.